Hey everybody, welcome. This is Founder Saga. My name is Jesse Randall. I am the founder of Sweater, and Sweater's objective is to open up the venture capital asset class to the whole world, which we're very excited about. And in the meantime, what we've decided to do is tell awesome, raw stories from founders that have been in the trenches, know what it's like to slodge through all of the difficulty that it is to create a business. And today, I'm extra excited about this particular business with Quickfee and Bruce Coombs because they have a global presence, and he's built quite an empire here. And so I'm excited to dig in. So Bruce, welcome.
Hey Jesse, no, thank you very much, mate. It's great to be invited. Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Yeah. So just for the benefit of everyone that's watching this, you are in Sydney and I'm in Boulder, Colorado.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, we haven't put on a very nice Sydney day today. Usually we get a bit of sunshine.
Yeah, I didn't think you guys had clouds in Australia. Well, welcome. We're really glad to have you. Typically the way I like to start this out, Bruce, is to kind of give everyone an opportunity to get to know you personally a little bit, as well as Quickfee. So, this is typically like, if you were meeting, a potential business partner that doesn't know anything about Quickfee, what's the quick 30, 60 seconds to give everyone an opportunity to understand what you're doing? And then, if you're willing to share like any stats or any insights into kind of the impact or reach of your business, I think that helps everyone pay attention later because they want to know how you got there.
Yeah, no, great. I'll give you like a little 30-second highlights reel sort of thing. So Quickfee, I'm the founder, started it 12 years ago. You can tell from my accent, didn't start it in Mississippi. I started it a long way south in Australia. I'm actually an accountant by trade. In a previous life, I was the managing partner of an accounting firm, so I sort of understand professional services as a business. So we provide like online payment gateway services specifically for accounting and law firms. We also provide a lending product where somebody who's had the services of an accountant or lawyer can get a loan from us and use that to pay for those services, but spread it out over 12 months. And back in December last year, we brought out a whole new product, which is a buy now, pay later solution for any service business. So whether it's
that's a big jump.
It's a massive jump for us. So we sort of jump from sort of prof services like accounting and law right into, we got like educational institutions, we got vets, we got dentists, we've even got a guy like the guy sort of helps you pick out the right mattress and all this sort of stuff. And we got recruiters, all sorts of people using that product so they can offer their clients a little 4-month interest-free payment plan to help them rebuild in 2021.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a big jump going from accounting and law firms to basically the whole world of services. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's interesting, Jesse, because a lot of the buy now, pay later, like most people have heard of Afterpay or they've heard of Klarna or, one of the others there. They're mainly about goods. You want to get another Gucci handbag or you want to get yourself a nice jacket or whatever, you'd get your Afterpay or whatever, right? Whereas what we're doing is more things you might want to have to buy, but you kind of have to buy them. So like, say the exterminator or the guy who's going to move your house or whatever, you feel like, don't really want to have to pay that, but I'm going to kind of have to. So if I can pay it over 4 months, that makes it easier for everybody.
Yeah, that's great. My gosh. I mean, so where do you operate? Where do you offer these services? Obviously in the United States. I mean, what other countries?
Yeah, and Australia. So we're in Australia and the United States right now. We've got a little bit more global ambition, but goodness me, the United States is the largest consumer of services in the world. So that's a pretty good market. So we're pretty happy to be in the States. And I think last time I looked, I think we've got customers in 44 of the 50 states. So, there might be some little place we haven't got, but, we've got a pretty good footprint now right across the US, especially California, Texas, and New Jersey. In fact, New Jersey is really big. They've got a great presence there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in terms of, looking at, I guess, how would I say, like the expansion strategy is going side to side, right? Instead of going to new markets, so to speak, right? Yeah. So within the United States, I mean, like taking that jump, is this a new jump? I mean, you said it was just this year, right? So it's been a long time in the making.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, I mean, our traditional products, have been great. Like our biggest customer is KPMG. Now that's a top 4 accounting firm, a global brand, right? So I mean that's great. But within the sort of accounting and legal in the United States, for example, we only want to deal with a certain size of firm on our traditional products, which means that the total market is maybe 5,000 firms, which add up to a couple hundred million of $200 billion of revenue in their businesses. And right now, to give you an idea, we're on track to probably process close to $1 billion in transactions in the next 12 months or so in the States. But then you look at that and you go, hang on, if there's 400 billion in the total accounting market and there's 1.2 trillion in the total services market, and many of those are services that people need but don't necessarily feel like paying for, let's expand, as you said, across the lines there and go into some fresh verticals. And doing it in a low risk way. Like at the end of the day, we're a credit provider. So you want to manage your credit risk. And the way we're doing it with our buy now, pay later keeps it very low risk. So exciting times for us.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, so with these newer products and actually being able to help people kind of finance their purchases, I mean, that's a totally different business model than payment transactions, or payment processing. So, I mean, you've got to have like warehouse lines behind you and all kinds of stuff. I mean, you've got a lot of infrastructure there, right?
Yeah, we have. And we're really fortunate. We've got an amazing CFO. He's the only member of the C-suite that's actually based in Australia. Everybody else is based in the United States. Who's got an amazing background and is able to help us with things like that, like getting a warehouse line and getting the right financing in place and all that. Because you're not going to be a finance company without a bag of money.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you can't. That math doesn't work, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, that's great.
Something I might share is we did our IPO back in July 19, and for anybody who's done it, I reckon anybody listening to this who's done it, they'll tell you that's one of the reasons. There are many, but one of the reasons I got no hair. Right? It is a painstaking, extremely hard work, extreme level of work. But the great thing once you've done it is you got currency. We needed $15 million to launch this new product. In 48 hours, we raised $15 million. You can't do that going around to your VC and putting on your black T-shirt and telling them, I've got this great idea and I'm in my mum's garage and it's going to be great and all that sort of stuff. Once you're public, the access to capital for great ideas is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Very good plug, right? So it's worth the extra oversight.
It really is. There's a lot of oversight. I mean, everybody knows that. Look, you're a custodian of other people's money. Of course, there needs to be oversight. There needs to be governance. It's 100% the right thing. The reason we've actually got the chairman we've got is because of his extremely strong corporate governance sort of background. Because I want everything to be right. You're custodians of other people's money. You want things to be right. But putting up with all that, to have access to capital, having a currency, it's great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, let's jump in the time machine and go back and examine how this whole thing started. So I like to call it the back of the napkin. It sounds like this was 12 years ago. So like if you went back and just pitched your original idea, what did that original idea look like? Where were you in your career? Like how did this whole thing shape up on day one?
Yeah. So the day one of Quickfee equaled the last day of the business I owned before that. So as I was saying at the start, I was the managing partner of an accounting firm. I introduced more partners, eventually sold down, got out of that back in the mid-2000s, something like that. So it's pretty obvious I'm not 21. So back in the mid-2000s, I exited that and I started like a business process outsourcing, like an offshoring sort of business, and built that up. And literally I sold that and literally had to do a little bit of an earn out with the people who bought it. So I literally started Quickfee from the offices of the company that I'd sold out to, saying, well, I'm not going to be here and I need something new to do. So I literally napkined out what Quickfee is going to look like. So started it back in 12 years ago now. So it was the money from the sale of the previous business that was the first pool of capital to start Quickfee. And I knew accountants and lawyers had a problem. I can tell you a little bit of data. The average business in the United States that issues an invoice and waits to be paid, so not like a retail store that gets paid instantly, but say a lumber yard that sends out timber to a building site, sends an invoice, waits to be paid. Across all the businesses in the States who send an invoice and wait to be paid, the average receivables is 44 days. CPA firms are 66 days. Law firms are 88 days. So I knew these two professions had this problem. So let's put a loan in place, help them out.
Yeah. So were you familiar with that problem because of your former business? Without diving too deep into that whole world, but you had familiarity with this. Yeah.
I did. My previous business served the accounting profession, so I knew the problem. So I thought, okay, I've solved one problem with this BPO thing. Great. Tick, move on, solve that. Great. Next problem, receivables. Now, what you're trying to do in any lending business is bridge a gap. On the one hand, you've got the firm, they've sent out an invoice, they have every right to be paid. They've done what they said they were going to do. Here's your invoice, pay it. The client says, but I only see my accountant or my lawyer once a year. Why am I paying all this at once? And if I don't pay, what's really going to happen? They're not like a key supplier where they can cut off supply. Like you imagine you own a bar and you don't pay the alcohol bill. Well, they'll cut you off. You'll be out of business in a week, right? You don't pay your accountant, well, they can't cut you off. It's not going to make a difference. So I thought if I can bridge that gap, there's a problem there to be solved.
That's super fascinating, just how you were able to roll that in. I mean, there's no better way to start a company than with the proceeds from the last one. I mean, that's a big advantage. and of course, and we needed money, right? Let's face it, we were lending money to people so they could pay their CPA or their lawyer. So we needed a bag of money to do that. And anybody listening to this that's in startup land would know, don't even waste your money calling up a bank and asking for money when you got a startup, right? You know, no bank is going to say, oh, Bruce, you've got a new finance company. Yeah, great. Here's a few $1 million. Knock yourself out, right? So I had to bankroll the whole thing myself. Yeah. So was there any technology? I guess I didn't ask this earlier, like to what degree does technology drive what you do today, if at all? And did you start off with that mentality?
Yeah, we, to answer the first question, what we do today, technology is extraordinarily important. And I'll explain a little bit of what that does. When we started with some off-the-shelf loan management software, which was great. Perfect way to start. Don't spend your limited capital building something to see if they'll come. Use some software and spend your money on marketing. Get some customers, then you've got their profits to spend on other things. So that was great. Where we are today, we moved from just that product to our payment gateway. A payment gateway where you're moving a lot of people's money from one bank account to another. You got to have very robust, solid tech. And we got a whole tech team based in LA to build all that sort of stuff for us.
Gotcha. So on day one, then, if we go back to that, did you have technology in mind in order to get started? Or did you start off with more of like a physical process and just like managing relationships and making the whole thing work manually?
Yeah. It's funny. Like when I think back to the first days, there was me and my sort of trusted assistant. And we had a spreadsheet, you know, and we were sending each email manually saying, hey, your loan has been settled and all this. You know, you can never do that today, too many transactions. And then we found this software, and I went and met the guy who wrote the code and all that, and said make little changes and we'll use it. But yeah, we went from like the dark ages, like a spreadsheet, to off the shelf to now build out all our own stuff. And I think, Jesse, like today, 2021, nearly everybody's a technology company. Technology is just the thing. Everybody needs it. Oh
yeah, it's the truth. I remember back in 2012, 2013, I worked on a lot of projects for digital transformation. Was a very hot topic, 8 years ago. And now it's like, I mean, if you're not digital, then you're like not in business. It's basically the reality of it. So with that first product then, I mean, so you're doing everything manually, trying to get things off the ground. I mean, you already had all these contacts, presumably. So you had a really great starting point. Plus, I mean, you had great credibility because you'd already been in the industry servicing everybody. I mean, this is a great way to start a business. I think that, you know, sign me up. I wish I could start a business with all that lined up.
But I think you make a good observation there, Jesse. Like for other people thinking about starting a business or something, well, what do you know, right? It's an interesting blend, isn't it? Like the Michael Gerber E-myth, right? You got, oh, I love bacon pies. I'll open a pie shop. 6 months later, I hate pies because you never wanted to really bake 200 pies a day, you know. So passion is good. That if you had to pick between something that you're good at or something where you really got connections where you can resonate, or in the alternative, there is somebody with connections that can say good things about your product, that opinion leader-led marketing sort of strategy. For any founder, if you can find people like that that love what you're trying to do and will tell others about it, that's a great way to build up some initial customers.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love it. So let me ask you about some of your early customers, because I mean, like getting to first revenue is typically challenging kind of a thing, right? There's a whole bunch of ways to go about it. Some people, like some companies are constrained because they have to build technology before they can sell anything, right? Others have either a luxury or a curse, depending on how you look at it, that you can go out and actually manually do it and then transition towards technology with time. It sounds like that was more of your story. And so I guess the second question, which I may be making this convoluted, is I call it the Tesla strategy, right? Where you start off with kind of a premium product and then you introduce other products that are, you know, less and less expensive, but you use the first products to fund the creation of the cheaper ones, right? And to kind of get whatever you're doing across the line. It sounds like you maybe had the opportunity to do a couple of those things, right? Where you were able to start manually, and then I presume that, I mean, because you were servicing the industry, you probably started out with some pretty good sized clients. Is that a fair assessment? Or like, what were those first clients like?
Yeah, so some of the first clients were clients of the previous business. So they were accounting firms because the product we were providing to them was something which helped accounting firms. So it was great to be able to leverage, hey, you already know me, you trust me. This is my new thing. Do you want to try it out? So that was great. Very fortunate to have that opportunity. So yeah, leveraging those existing relationships. I mean, what do they say, Jesse? The 3 rules of any successful startup: get 3 customers, love them to death, get 3 testimonials. Right. So we were lucky enough to be able to provide a great service to people that already had trust in me. And then we just build it from there. We got testimonials, and you go to a conference, and then, hey, you see Bill uses us, you should talk to him, he'll tell you how good we are, blah, 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 and build it up that way. To your point around the technology, so we were fortunate to be able to start virtually manually, pretty basic sort of stuff. And then over time, we got a bit of software, and then we decided, let's get into the payment space so we can wrap our loan products inside a payments gateway, which will drive up even more lending activity. So that had to be built. So then we ended up being a little bit of a tech company, you know, and we're getting developers to do things, and we're learning, oh, okay, it's not as easy as we thought, and, you know, to the point now where we've got a, you know, very, very well-regarded CTO who manages all that for us. But you're absolutely right. You've got to go on that journey. If you can start manually, just get some early revenues, some early testimonials, early happy customers, and then build out your tech from there. That'd be fantastic if you're fortunate enough to do that.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So did you end up going towards the upper end of your client pool to try to get things started, or did you start lower risk with smaller folks?
Yeah, we actually did it the other way. Yeah, we started with the smaller ones. The accounting and legal professions, generally speaking, would be regarded as late adopters. You know, you don't have a lot of, you don't meet too many Elon Musks, you know, in the accounting world, right?
Sure.
So they want to know that it's safe, and does anybody else use it? What's all this? So we ended up starting quite small, and we worked our way up the food chain to like I say, to the KPMGs and RSMs of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. So, I mean, you talked about the cycle a little bit, right? Of generate some revenue, make some profits, use that profits to grow. So it sounds like you know that game very well. If you could dive into that a little bit more, I think this is such a powerful thing for entrepreneurs to understand as a repeatable way to be able to build companies and take them into market. I mean, it's effectively bootstrapping, but it's a little different to me because it's actually a straight up mentality that you're going to go take a client to generate profits to reinvest and do it again, right? And how you create that flywheel effect. So if you were to sit down with, a founder that had an opportunity to follow a similar path, how would you describe that, over a 3 to 5 year period? What are you telling them to do? And like, how does the equation, like, how does the math work? Do you have any rules of thumb or any guidance there?
You're absolutely right when you mention the flywheel. Anybody who wants to just Google Jim Collins flywheel and have a look at what Jim has to say about it. It is so key to success in business. And it's very, very important to be focused on the problem you're solving. And that is such an easy thing to say and such an obvious thing. But often entrepreneurs, because they are entrepreneurs, are attracted to another great idea, but don't. Once you've found something that generates revenue, don't go and do anything else. Keep doing that one. Like, if you're in the stationery business and you're selling pens, don't go into the space exploration business, right? Go from pens to paper, and from paper to sticky notes to this. Stay in your lane. It's a very important lesson, and it's really hard because the entrepreneurial mindset is, oh, wow, there's a problem. I'd like to solve it. This looks like an intellectual challenge. This will be great. But no, get on your flywheel. And then you'll have all the money in the world to do anything else you want to do.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So you put your, go ahead.
It's very important not to look at it as, what do I have to do to make money? I don't think that's the right approach. I think the approach is, what is the problem? If I was the potential customer, what would I want? You look at it through the lens of the customer and work at, yes, there's a problem. Yes, it can be solved commercially. Instead of how big can the commercial game be? How can I find customers? Lens of the customer, can it be solved commercially? Just keep doing that.
Mm. That's good. Yeah, I mean, that focus is so important. I've interacted with a few companies that try to do way too many things at once, and it's painful. Like, I mean, splitting your mind like that, it's like Harry Potter, like Voldemort, right? You split your soul 5 ways and you're not good for anything anymore, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you put your own money on the line for Quickfee. That's such an interesting I guess exercise to go through as a person, to take your own personal wealth, right? And like, so whether you've got $10 million and you're risking $1 million, or you've got $100,000 and you're risking 10,000, it's a little different, theoretically, but you're still risking something that's yours. So you were successful in this, obviously. So you would say, do it again, right? Now, knowing what you know, but in the moment, I mean, when you decide to go in and tackle this and put your own money on the line, what's that feeling like? How do you manage the emotion of it?
It's it's a really good question, Jesse, because on the one hand, you need enough self-confidence to say, yes, I can do this. Yes, there is a problem to solve, and yes, I can solve it and do it commercially. But on the other hand, you need to have enough self-doubt to not go crazy and not go, oh, I've got 10 million. I could put $1 million on this. Oh, no. It's so good, I'll put all 10 million in, right? And, all in like a poker player. And then find out you were wrong. You got to have a bit of self-doubt and a bit of confidence, probably in fairly even measure, to make it work. Frankly, if you're not prepared to put your money up, why would an investor put money up? If you're not prepared to risk your money, then why should they? I think it's a good sign of faith to show potential investors, and people listening to this might be thinking about the VC, especially seed rounds and Series A and all that. No investor wants to back you unless you back yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. So with the emotion side of it, how did that feel for you?
Yeah.
To be putting it back in?
Yeah. When I started the Australian thing, I knew people, I knew the industry. I was a bit known around the industry. My other thing was sort of a bit of a groundbreaker. So I felt, reasonably confident, not egotistical and not cocky about it, but I thought, we'll get something out of this. I'll make $1 out of it. How big it'll be, I don't know, but it'll be all right. And I was doing it I wasn't building out a massive tech stack or anything. So I wasn't risking a lot of capital on building. It was more just putting the capital out and lending. So as long as I was sensible with the lending criteria, it wasn't too bad. But I can tell you this, if you talk about the emotional piece, when you go to the States is not home. It is not Australia. It is not New Zealand. It is not England. It is the States. And there are 50 of them, and they're all quite different. So I can remember, you talk about the emotion, because I remember sitting in a hotel in LA, sort of just at night, maybe 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and sort of looking down and going, what am I doing? What am I doing? That is hard. One of the hardest things I've ever done was taken a business from absolutely nothing, knowing no one in the United States. That is the true emotion. That's the part where you really think, okay, the self-doubt's a bit too high at the moment. We better put a bit of confidence back into the equation.
Yeah, that is incredible. I mean, I have an MBA in international business and have a fascination with what it means to, take something globally and everything involved in that very difficult equation. So I'm fascinated by the process you went through. Would you mind just divulging a little bit more about how you got your foot in? And I mean, really looking from state to state. I mean, especially in financial services, every state's got different regulations and different hoops you have to jump through. So to tell us about that, I mean, it's very interesting.
Yeah, you're 100% right. In the United States, finance, even things like credit card operation is actually regulated at the state level. So for an Australian businessman, that was unusual, number one. Most things in Australia, it's a tiny place, are regulated at a federal level. So it's a lot easier, right? Like the UK, it's pretty much a federal sort of thing as well. Mm-hmm. So to find that every state was different, okay, that's interesting. Number two, we decided to operate in a way where we only made commercial loans, which removed the need for a credit license in every state bar California. So went off, found an attorney, got a lending license in California. I had a Californian-born guy working for us in Australia. He'd moved out to Australia, still a US citizen. So he was one of our BDMs. So we actually sent him back to the States, and we said, right, at least we've got somebody with the right accent who's sold our product. You can be salesman number one, sort of thing. And I was very, very fortunate. I have a amazing guy who ran my offshoring business for me. And I called him up and I said, mate, we're getting the old band back together. Do you feel like going to the States? And he goes, okay, when do I start? So to have somebody that you know and trust that's very loyal to you is so important in business. So James is still with us in the States. He's our COO. So I put him on the ground to solve the problems, put the other guy on the ground to sell it. Spent about half the year there myself. And we slowly built up a business out of nothing.
Yeah, I mean, literally out of the dust, right?
Out of the dust. We basically didn't know anybody. It was a lot harder than Australia, where at least we knew people. So, we're super excited. We signed our first customer up, and the other guy, Kyle, and I were actually in Australia at the time. So we're awake at 4 a.m. out of the office, talking to this firm in Texas. We didn't want them to know that we were in Australia. So,
That's awesome. Yeah, it's on a need-to-know basis, right?
yeah, that's right. That's right. Why can I hear all those birds waking up? Oh, don't worry about that.
Yeah, they squawk this time of day. Right. So how long did you run the business in Australia before coming to the US?
6 years.
Okay, yeah.
So that was good. So it's very fortunate to be able to take something where you've had success, you know what the journey looks like, and take it to a new jurisdiction. So yeah, we had an idea of what we were doing. We took it to the States, but the States is so different. If there's an Australian business person listening to this, do not think it's just because you take a few U's out of some words and put some Z's into others, Z's into them, that's the only difference. It is very different. You need, well, you know this from your qualification, Jesse, you need local talent. You must have local talent wherever you go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Well, if we kind of step back for a second and just examine like your experience over the last 12 years with this, besides the moment when you launched into the US, what's another critical moment in the business when you thought, is this going to work?
Yeah. There was a moment where I found one of our customers, and they were a very big customer of ours in Australia, was engaged in some fraudulent activity. And that, for a lender, that is like your worst moment. That's your greatest fear, that, oh my goodness, these loans may not be real. So, you know, that'd be a total loss. The total loss, and that's the case.
Yeah.
And I literally, this guy wasn't not in Sydney, in a different state. So I literally had to fly up there and literally confront him. And then it looked very, very flaky. And then I got one of his customers to sort of, in FBI parlance, to roll over, as they say, and basically spilled the beans on what he'd been up to, and we collected all our money. That's scary, sobering stuff.
Yeah, that is scary and sobering. My gosh. Yeah. How long did that process take?
Oh, that was, took me 3 or 4 months.
Oh, geez.
And that's back when.
Long 3 or 4 months, yeah.
That's, I'm not a worrier by nature, really, but it's still, that sort of stuff's still sickening. Yeah, you know, there's some things you just remember. And when I twigged what was going on, I thought, oh my God. And that was like, it was probably our biggest customer back then.
Wow.
So it's a decent part of our loan book. I think, this is a problem.
My gosh. I'm glad you survived. Holy cow. I feel like that was the Reader's Digest version. I bet there's a lot more details under the surface there.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I usually like to take the last 5 minutes or so and just hand the mic over to you. And, you know, if you imagine yourself standing on a stage in front of 300 entrepreneurs that are currently in the trenches, what would you want to tell them to inspire them to keep going?
I'd say one of the greatest attributes you need to succeed is being curious. You know, Albert Einstein has a bit of a quote around it, right? He says he's not intelligent, he's just curious, right? And I think he sells himself down a little bit there. But being curious helps you think of, well, what would the customer experience look like? I wonder if the customer would like a battle like this. I wonder, why do we even do it like that? Hey, why does my competitor do that? Why? Are they crazy, or is there something I'm missing? Like, being curious. I'd also, any entrepreneur would tell anybody, I think, that you will prevail. Be persistent. You've got to be persistent. It doesn't mean you don't have to adapt. You've got to pivot. Nearly every person who started a business does not end that successful business doing what they started. You learn, you adapt. Ooh, hang on, I was going to sell pens, but it turns out there's lots of those. The paper is hard. That's how interesting. You know, I'll pivot. I'm still in the stationery business, but I'll pivot a little bit. That persistence, be prepared to pivot, curiosity. You know, I think all those things really help. And you don't need a lot of money to live on. I can absolutely assure you, you don't need a lot of money to live on. So don't think that giving up your $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 job is going to be the end of the world. It's not. There are perfectly fine meals at $10. Right? You know, the money will come. The money will come, but you've got to have that curiosity and persistence and willingness to pivot to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Yeah, curiosity is really the core of everything, right? I mean, if you don't have that, I don't know if you would do very well as an entrepreneur, right? Because you don't have
You won't.
I mean, it's like the curiosity that solves the problems, right? And it
Yeah,
solves problems and it discovers opportunities. If you're just hell
it does.
bent on going after something you have in your head and you never look around, you're missing the whole picture, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's I've got a really good friend who's a pilot, right? And he sort of said to me, he says, you know, there's a reason why pilots do not make businessmen. They never make a transition from cockpit to owning a business. It's just because we like order. We want everything to follow the checklist every time. Now, if you're on a jet, you don't want a pilot who's curious. You don't want some guy up the front going, wow, I wonder what this does. You know, oh, I wonder what happens if you do this, right? You want them absolutely follow it. But if you're an entrepreneur, you don't want to be a pilot. You don't want to follow a checklist. You want to be different. You want to be curious.
Yeah, exactly. No pilots. But sometimes entrepreneurs want to hire pilots afterwards, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for spending time with us today. You know, I think that learning about stories like yours, it's inspiring, right? To understand that you can't, I mean, you can do it once, but you can do it multiple times, right? And the experience just grows and feeds off itself to create something better every time.
Mate, been fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jesse. Bye-bye.
Bye.